It's really exciting to be in a room full of cooperators. Usually I go to these conferences and I say co-op and they sort of give me the hairy eyeball like, co-op, what's that? So how many of you are involved with the co-op now? Yay, you're members. How many of you housing co-op? A few, good. Consumer food? Good. Farming? Good. Wow, this is exciting. How many of you want to start a co-op or a collective in your community? I'm so happy to be here with the co-op clan. It's really great. Thank you so much to Louis and Kim for inviting us. Our co-op started in 1976 with 300 families. One of our members borrowed $5,000 from his dad and paid it back within the first year and a half. Next slide. Now we have 17,000 families that own the co-op. We have 5 locations and a food shed warehouse. Next slide. A little bit of our branding. Keep rolling it along. I really believe that the important thing about co-ops is that we meet needs of people in communities, that we pool our resources and we meet the needs of our people and our communities and our friends and neighbors next. So it's really about bringing people together and helping them form communities and rebuild communities, because for most of us, we lost our communities. Next slide. All ages, keep it rolling. Again, as a consumer co-op, we really want to bring people together over their food and around thinking about their food and eating more healthy and where their food comes from. Next slide. This is John and Trudy, 2 ranchers who are distributing or sampling their meat, their beef at our Earth Day celebration. Next slide. Really so that all ages of people really get to know the people and the animals that provide us with their food, so that we can really create that respect and that love and honoring what folks do for us in terms of food. Next slide. Again, these are all our Earth Day, some of our Earth Day slides, and we have a big Earth Day festival coming up. All generations, it's really important to reach out to all generations and make everybody feel welcome. Our first cooperative principle is open and voluntary membership, and to me that open is really important, because everybody needs to feel that the co-op is their home. It's a safe place for everybody, no matter what. And so we really try and bring all our community together at all ages. One of the things that we do for the children, because we really want to get children together with their food and understanding the importance of their food, is every child that comes in shopping with their parents to any of our stores gets to pick 1 piece of free fruit, something they've never tried, something they know they love, no charge. And so, apples, oranges. We have a few people who want to take a whole pineapple home and say, this is what my child, but we sort of limit it to apples, oranges, pears, peaches, stuff like that. So, 1 piece of fruit that they can eat while mom or dad are shopping, and so that they get to try anything that they want. And that's been really good. And, you hear kids now, and they can also choose a vegetable, a carrot or a radish or something like that. So it's really great to hear kids say that. Also, I think it's really important to have all the cultures in your community represented and feel welcome and feel ownership of your co-op. Again, this is our Earth Day celebration. We always start with our Native American prayer and honoring songs and dances. We honor all the cultures through, in New Mexico, we're very blessed to have a very diverse cultural landscape, as well as a beautiful environmental landscape. And we bring everybody together at Earth Day. Our Earth Day celebration is next weekend. And so, again, bringing everybody together to feel comfortable, be happy, keep it running along. This is what our Earth Day celebration looks like now. We started out with 6 booths 21 years ago, our first Earth Day celebration. And now we generally have about 10,000 people over the course of the day, 120 organizations, environmental, social justice, and economic justice, farmers and gardeners coming. We had about 10,000 people there last year. And we are now spreading out throughout the community and drawing people into our circle and we're partnering with Emmanuel Presbyterian Church, much like this conference is partnering with this church. And so bringing all the diverse aspects into the co-op community is really important. This, I put this slide up. We're doing, a lot of you in co-ops know that the Department of Labor has said that we can't have people working in our stores anymore unless everybody who is a co-op member works in their stores. But we still wanted to be able to offer discounts on foods. New Mexico is one of the poorest states. The poverty level is really high. Childhood hunger is really high in New Mexico, and we wanted to make sure that local food and organic food was financially accessible to folks. And so we wanted to maintain our volunteer program. We now have about 220 volunteers working in 60 organizations throughout all our communities, and for every hour that they volunteer in those organizations, including public schools. We have many parents who volunteer an hour a week at their children's public school, either in the school garden, in the library, in the office, in the classroom. And every time they volunteer 1 hour, they get a coupon that lets them shop at an 18% discount at the co-op with no limit in spending. So that is one of the ways that we're really trying to make our food and our co-op accessible to people of all levels of income. This particular project is a school project that we did. We donated a lot of the food, a lot of the volunteer effort. These children made 250, they grew the pumpkins. You saw the farm picture before. They grew the pumpkins, they processed the pumpkins, they baked pumpkin bread. And between Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, they gave away 250 loaves of pumpkin bread to homeless shelters throughout their community, throughout Albuquerque community. And so those are the kinds of projects that we like to do with people. Having volunteers out in the community is really important because it really ties those volunteers and those organizations to your co-op, like spokes in a wheel, going out from your co-op out into the community to really firm up those relationships. And we think that's great. Really, probably one of the things that I was asked here to talk about, really, now, finally getting to that, is our Food Shed initiative. About 6 years ago, well, probably 15 years ago, Whole Foods, Wild Oats, alfalfas all moved into our trade region. And we had to think of a way that we could stay viable and relevant to the community in the face of massive competition. And we read that book, which I highly recommend, Good to Great, by author Jim Collins. And he really directed us to look at what we do and figure out what we do well and how we take that to the next level. And we had been purchasing local foods from farmers for about 25 years and decided that that was what we were going to focus on. So we figured out our food shed area was based on our watershed. Our watershed in New Mexico starts in southern Colorado in the San Juan Mountains at the headwaters of the Rio Grande Valley and cuts through the Rio Grande Valley Rift, which is the second largest rift valley in the world. The one in Africa is the first, the Rio Grande is the second, and empties into the Gulf of Mexico. And that is where all our irrigation water comes from. We only get about 7 inches of rain. You're so blessed here in California with all the rain you get. We get about 7 inches, if we're lucky, 10 inches of rain a year. And so all our irrigation comes generally off our river valleys. The Mimbres is the traditional river valley in the southwestern part of the state, the Rio Grande, the Mora River. So we looked at the watershed region and we then created a 300-mile food shed area. I know a lot of people say local is 50, a lot of people say 100-mile diet. We in the arid Southwest say 300, and that whole local definition is really a difficult definition and changes depending on where in the country you are. So you can see we have these different circles. Next slide. We rented a warehouse 4 years ago, 11,000 square feet. To us, it was huge. We thought, oh my God, how are we going to pay for this? And how are we going to fill it up? And what are we going to do? And now it's all filled up 4 years later. It's right at the intersection of I-25 and I-40. We rented trucks, 2 trucks, refrigerated trucks, that we run 6 days a week around that 300-mile radius. We now work with 900 local farmers and producers, ranchers, produce, fruit, cheese, nuts, and 20% of everything that we purchase and sell is locally produced. We do about 30 million in sales a year, so that's a substantial amount of money going back into the local economy. And you all know about the multiplier effect. So if you have, $1 spent, right? You've all heard this, yes? $1 spent in a local store, right, can multiply from 4 to 8 times, depending on what economists you read. So I use 6. You take that same dollar to Walmart or Whole Foods or other publicly traded corporate, immediately 80 cents leaves your community and only 20 cents stays in your community. So when you think 20 cents, $6, 20 cents, $6, no brainer, right? You want that $6 in your community. So over the years, that's been really good. Our distribution center, we call it the Co-op Distribution Center, the CDC. This is our little warehouse. We're already starting to look for a bigger warehouse because our lease is up on this warehouse. Next slide. This is Michelle, our warehouse manager, receiving our very first truck at our warehouse a number of years ago. One of the things that we do is we do buy nationally made products. Like in New Mexico, there's no paper products made in New Mexico. There's no maple syrup made in New Mexico. So we contract with other small family businesses to buy large quantities of those products. We then sell them through our distribution network to our own stores and other stores. The overhead from those at the same price that they get from UNFI, the other big distributors. And the overhead from those products helps support the upkeep on the warehouse and lets us buy direct from farmers and give them good prices and do that. That previous slide, that's some of the community development and community education work we do. People are always saying to us, oh, local food's more expensive or organic's more expensive. And so really we're on this huge educational mission to really talk to people about why it's important they buy that, why the food costs more. And again, we have that 18% discount that allows people really to take advantage of what we offer. But we're all facing that big educational learning curve. And so we do a lot of community development. Next slide. So these are some of the faces of our farmers. And they're amazing people who work really hard. We work really hard to create markets for them. One of the things that we do is we also, when our truck goes out to a farm to pick up product, they may tell us that they need packing boxes, they need fruit boxes, they need egg cartons, they need sugar for their value-added product, or they need something. So as we go out to a farm, we deliver supplies that we buy in large quantities that we can then sell to the farmers at greatly reduced rates than what they could get if they purchased as a single farm. So we're trying to really complete that circle, that cycle of provide supplies, pick up produce, and market that produce or product, really more than just produce. This is one of my favorite stories, that Scott Rasband, his family dairy has been in New Mexico for 4 generations. His kids will be the 5th generation. When we first met Scott, his wife Jean had an off-farm job, like many of you farmers know. Very few farmers make all their income on-farm. We started distributing his milk throughout the state through the Food Shed Project, and now Jean has given up her off-farm job. They all work just on the farm, and this is their farm store right on their farm. We pick up their milk 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and take it all over the state. We've increased their farm income substantially. They're increasing their herd to meet the supply that we've helped them create, and it's a happy story. It's a win-win story. Yay, Jean's on the farm with Scott. In the winter in Albuquerque, it's really hard to have pasture 24, but as you can see, his cows are well cared for, and I love this picture. You know, a lot of times in the winter you see cows and they're up to their knees in mud. Well, not Scott's farm. His cows are beautifully cared for. His milk is delicious. Keep running it through. This is our truck picking up 3 days a week and distributing. That's Brian, our warehouse guy. This is another really fun story. Tomas Apodaca, he lives on land-grant land in the East Mountains, east of Albuquerque. His farm hadn't been farmed, I think, since 49. The next slide says it's either 49 or 47. No. Well, his farm had been in disuse since 49 or 47, I forget. And he has created a living farm that now supports 5 families on the farm. And I love this picture because it really shows how farming and co-ops bring people together of diverse cultures that work together, that pool their energies, and create a good, viable economy that really works for them. And so East Mountain Organics, this is some of the advertising that we do for them. One of the things they do is in season they call our produce purchasers every Monday and say, this is what's coming on, this is what we're picking, we think we have 20 bushels of X or Y or Z. And then our produce purchasers don't purchase from California. Sorry, California, I know I'm here in California. And we don't pay California prices either. We negotiate prices with our local farmers at the rates that they really feel it costs them to produce what they're producing. And as you all know, the California price list is really depressed. You all can really produce at a way less cost than what we can in New Mexico because your rain and your soils, our farmers have to work a little harder. But again, another story, Shane and Sage from Soaring Eagle Ranch. About 2 years ago, we really wanted a local beef. We realized that 95% of all the beef that is produced in New Mexico, and New Mexico is one of the major beef producing states in the country, goes out of state, and we have no idea whose beef comes back into the state. And we really figured that we really wanted local beef. So we worked with 7 New Mexico ranchers and helped them put together a sweetgrass producers co-op. We now buy 2 beeves a week just for our 5 stores and use the beef from start to finish. Their producers co-op is doing really well. And because of that producers co-op, because some of the ranchers live at a high altitude, pasture is really good in the summer. Low altitude, it's really dry and brown in the summer. So the ranchers work together and their cows they share their pastures. So we have 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef 12 months out of the year because of this co-op. We also contract with a small family slaughterhouse that finally got their USDA certification, and now we're distributing their beef not only to our stores, 2 beeves a week, but to a variety of restaurants, senior centers, health facilities all over the state, and all the ranches are increasing their herd substantially. Again, they're able to stay on the ranch and not have off-farm jobs. Sage, who worked off-farm for a while now, is right on the ranch. That flower picture is because I always like to talk about non-traditional agricultural exports, which I think, that was sort of the global economy ideal in which small communities would produce for the global marketplace. What happened in those communities, as we all know what happened in Latin and South America, is the best land was taken for the global market and people in those communities were going hungry. And our idea for the whole Food Shed project is import replacement. We want to create food and products in our communities and not export jobs and not import foods, taking food out of the mouths of other communities that need their land to grow their own food. So we have Vicky Ratcliffe now grows lots of those beautiful flowers, 3 seasons. We don't have flowers in the winter, but we have flowers 3 seasons. This is a really another fun story. This is Old Windmill Dairy. We have a lot of goat dairies in New Mexico. It's really conducive because of our environment to have goats rather than cows, although southern New Mexico now has large CAFO dairies that really are a problem. But in the spring, when everybody is kidding, there is so much goat milk, and there's a glut on the market of fresh chev. Everybody's got so much fresh chev, and prices were being depressed to the farmers when they were trying to sell their fresh chev. So we first worked with a local restaurant chain, Flying Star. They have 9 restaurants in Albuquerque and 2 in Santa Fe, and asked them to put Old Windmill Dairy's fresh chev on their menu, and they did. They made a great enchilada with goat cheese, and everybody was happy, and that siphoned off a bunch of the fresh chev during the glut time. and really helped maintain prices. But we also realized that there was no aged goat cheese available in New Mexico, no aged cheese made in New Mexico of any kind. So we worked with Ed and his partner Mike Lobau, and we gave them $5,000 sort of prepaid for their cheese and helped them design and build cheese aging caves, the first cheese aging caves in New Mexico on their farm. And now we have a variety of aged goat cheese, cheddar, Gouda, brie. There's one more, cheddar, Gouda, brie, I can't remember, but there are 4 kinds of aged goat cheese now, and that siphons off more of the milk and goes into these aged cheeses that then they sell in the middle of winter when there's not so much fresh chev, and it really maintains their income level. And that's the kind of value chain development that we're really looking at and really trying to create in our food system. Not just fresh product, but value-added product that utilizes a variety of methods to increase the market value for farmers. Our motto, by the way, is fresh, fair, and local. And fair because we want it to be fair from the soil to the consumer and everybody in between. Everybody gets paid fairly, everybody gets treated fairly, we're good to the environment. Fresh because it's fresh, and local because it's local, it's in our food shed. So, co-op values. So this is another one of our fun stories about value chain development. New Mexico was the wheat basket at the Southwest for a very long time, like 75, 80 years, and it sort of fell away. But we still had many farmers in northern New Mexico growing a lot of wheat and having to ship their wheat into the commodity market or not using their wheat locally. So about 3 years ago now, we bought 200,000 pounds of hard red winter wheat from farmers in the fall. We stored it in our refrigerators. If you see that picture in the middle of those 3 pictures at the top of this baguette label, that's Jose Cordova's mill that has been in his family in Valencia, in central New Mexico for about 80 to 100 years. I don't even know, it's really a long time, many generations. It had fallen into disuse. We made a loan to Jose to help him refurbish the mill. We bought the red winter wheat. We truck the winter wheat to his mill. He mills it for us. We sell the flour throughout the state to bakeries, through our stores, to other stores. It's really good whole wheat flour. It's really wonderful flour. And then we started contracting with a local bakery, TLC Bakery in Albuquerque, to make baguettes. So from start to finish, for the first time in who knows how many years, wheat and bread in New Mexico is made start to finish in our food shed region. And that's, again, that value chain, creating that food system value chain. This is another one of the value chain stories that's really fun. 2 years ago, we had a terrible hailstorm right in the middle of growing season. It was mid-August. It was a horrendous hailstorm. It damaged all the fruit terribly, both in the southern part of the state where we can grow pomegranates and in the northern part of the state where we have many apple growers. And the growers were beside themselves because it looked like they were going to lose the income from their whole crop. They couldn't sell their crop because it was ugly, you know, it was pitted, it had those brown spots from the hail damage. And so we worked with a local juice maker. We bought the apple crop from the northern New Mexico farmers and the pomegranate crop from the southern New Mexico farmers, and we put it together in a pomegranate apple juice made by Big B's. We made the label. It's again that value added thing, and it's a local product. You know, everybody talks about the palm. Well, it's, you know, it's huge, and their practices aren't as good as we would like them to be. So here is that import replacement. Here's that local. It created a tertiary income stream, and I like to talk about the primary income stream for farmers is their retail sales. It goes out through the farmers markets. It goes out through their CSAs. The secondary income stream for farmers is selling to us wholesale. We buy large quantities wholesale from them. This is the tertiary income stream, in which we create a value-added product from products or produce that they might have had to compost or couldn't have made any income from at all. And so creating multiple income streams for the farm, for the farmers, for the food system. And we're always looking for, we're looking for that fourth income stream. So if any of you have any ideas, just let me know, and, let's think through that one together. Let's find a resource. Some of our advertising, again, we do a lot of marketing and advertising for all our farmers. This is Rancho Durazno peaches. They come from southern Colorado, New Mexico border, right in that mountainous region where our food shed begins. Next slide. This is Zane. We did this whole project where we had local celebrities, and Zane is a well-known writer for the Santa Fe Reporter and a sort of man about town, very eligible bachelor. And so we did some ads with him about local beef because he's really into beef. And so, people recognized Zane right away. It put, it was sort of an exciting, fun thing. And so that's, this is our little Photoshop action here. That's Brian, who really loves that. He's our truck driver. And that's our truck. Next slide. So, here's our markets. And so we now have 5 locations. We started in a little 800 square foot store just on the eastern edge of the university. In 1989, we moved to what is known as our flagship store, just east of the university, in the Nob Hill region. It was the oldest strip mall in Albuquerque, and built in the 30s, and so that's one store. Our next store that we opened in 99 is our North Valley location. The North Valley was a sort of agricultural area that had no grocery store. They had to drive way into town to get to shop. And so we opened a little grocery store. We bought an old defunct grocery store and opened a little grocery store in the North Valley that's doing extremely well at this point. This is Pedro in our Santa Fe store. Another thing that we do is we have all sorts of people come and do demos, which I'm sure you all do, trying to put that face to the farmer and build those relationships. What the local food system does, what co-ops do, what I mentioned earlier, is we're really about recreating relationship to one another, relationship to our food, relationship to in our communities as a whole. And so this is our Gallup store, a really fun Gallup store, little tiny. It's about 1,000 square feet. Again, we helped a group of community members. They had to drive all the way into Albuquerque if they wanted soy milk and whole wheat flour or whatever. And they had it was really basically a food desert. So we helped them about 8 years ago start their own food co-op, which was run totally on volunteer labor. And about 5 years into their experience, they were a little burned out, and they really couldn't do it anymore, and they asked if we could merge with their little store. So we did. We paid off their debt. We invested $160,000 in that community, and we now have a going, wonderfully supported by the community little grocery store that is also buying local produce direct from like the Rama Navajo growers, co-op, and a bunch of other stuff. Our final store, which is really fun, we just opened on January 17th. For about a couple of years, we have been working with the University of New Mexico Sustainability Studies department, and those students decided that they wanted an on-campus healthy food outlet, but they also, after about a year of working on it, decided that their programs were all too stressful and they didn't have the energy to put it together or the resources, and the university wasn't willing really to help them at all. So they came to us and asked them, because I've been talking to them about co-op and co-op and co-op, and also, the Anderson School of Management, which is the business school at UNM, wanted them to partner with Whole Foods or Sunflower or Trader Joe's, and the students, God bless them, said, no way, we want a co-op. We know the difference between the co-op structure and the corporate structure, and we want a co-op, and put us in touch with and insisted that the co-op be the one to open the store on their campus for them. And we figured if we could do $500 a day, we could pay all the bills and pay all the staff. We're doing between $1,600 and $2,000 a day out of that little 800 square foot location. So it's pretty amazing. Here's one of the students putting up our signs and creating some of our marketing in store. and rolling right along there. There it is stocked. It's just as sweet as it can be. The students have been so supportive, and it's really fun. So yeah, our store, yay, our newest little store. So investing in community, and I'm going to go really quickly over this. The next piece to building the food system was funding the food system. Where do we get the capital to make loans to local farmers and local producers? Because the bank, it's really hard for farmers anyhow. It's always been really hard for farmers to get a loan. Many farmers don't want to put their farms up for collateral. The banks want them to start paying those loans back right away. And we often, and the farmers, they'll need money for seed in March, but they won't be able to start selling until the end of May or early June, and really their major crop might come in August if they're grain farmers, or later than August. And so they needed a different payment schedule. So we created an investing co-op that is a subsidiary of La Montanita Co-op. In 6 weeks, we raised $100,000 to make microloans to farmers between $500 to $5,000, although we did make a $250 loan, so we're not hard and fast about those rules. But it's really, again, to meet the need of the local producers at 5% interest rate. And so it's really an extension, and if you want to roll through, you can read some of this. And I think I'm going to talk about this more later in the next workshop, so we can just either scroll through really fast and they can read it later, or we can, I hope you're speed readers, so you can always get in touch with me. And I just want to leave you really quickly, the next slide, please. Our famous New Mexico green chili, we're working with a bunch of seed sovereignty people, some of the tribes and pueblos, because they want to genetically engineer our green chili. So we're really trying hard to maintain that, it's the ultimate in biopiracy, we think, and we won't stand for it. I don't know, how many of you read Small is Beautiful and remember? A few, yay, I'm not the only one who's read it. Back in the 70s, this book came out, and it was one way about thinking about how to do a local economy and the importance of a local economy. And here we are, how many years later, 30, 40 years later? We're now got the picture. We don't want to outsource jobs, which is one of the beauties of co-ops, right? People say, well, what's the value of a co-op, really? And I always say, well, it's owned by the community that it resides in, and nobody's going to ever outsource those jobs because we're not going to outsource the co-op. And so next slide. E.F. Schumacher wrote this in 73, and I think given the economic downturn, which may be one of the best things that ever happened to our environment and our communities, because we're going to find better ways to do our economy than, the business as usual corporate model. I think the infinite growth of material consumption in a finite world is an impossibility. Brilliant statement. And last slide, last but not least, this statement. And you are the touches of genius, you in the co-op world, you who get it about the importance of the co-op model. You are those geniuses that are going to take us into the future and help make a sustainable future and a better world. And so I thank you all for not falling asleep and for inviting me here. And go co-op, go co-op. Thank you.